Character is not what you show the world, it's what you choose when no one is watching. My friends, let that sink in, because too many men live blind, mistaking affection for devotion and attention for love. You've probably been there before, believing the sweet words, the late-night texts, the perfect smiles, only to later realize they were nothing more than well-rehearsed lines in a play you didn't know you bought a ticket for. That's the danger. You see the performance, but you don't see the actor behind it. And it costs men years they'll never get back. So before we go further, do me a favor, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and stay with me. Because today we're going to strip away the illusions and talk about the silent tests, the ones that expose the truth without you ever having to ask a single question. Tests that reveal whether you found loyalty or just convenience in disguise. Hey folks, imagine this. You're standing in the middle of a stage. The lights are bright, the audience is clapping, and the person you trust most is standing next to you, smiling, holding your hand. In that moment, they look perfect. But here's the catch. Everyone looks perfect on stage. That's the magic of performance. The real question is, what happens when the curtain falls, the lights go out, and the audience leaves? Do they still hold your hand in the dark? Or do they let go the second no one's watching? That's where character lives, in the shadows, not in the spotlight. Too many men grade love like they're grading a sunny afternoon. They's warm, she's affectionate, she's fun. But weather changes, doesn't it? You can't build a life on the sunshine of good moods. You need climate, patterns, principles, consistency. As Marcus Aurelius said, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one. And I'll add this, waste no more time arguing about what a loyal partner should be. Watch them when the stage is empty, and you'll know. See, folks, impression management is one of the oldest tricks in human psychology. Everyone polishes their behavior when they're being watched. It's like wearing a brand new suit to a wedding but tossing it in the closet the moment you get home. That's why love shown in public is not always the same as loyalty lived in private. Some people wear affection like an outfit. It looks sharp in the crowd, but it comes off the moment they step into silence. Others live by a code, a set of values that don't bend just because no one's clapping. That's the difference between love that lasts and love that performs. And let's have a little fun with this. Think of loyalty like Wi-Fi. When the connection is strong, you barely notice it. Everything just flows. But the moment you step away and the signal drops, you suddenly realize how fragile it was. Real loyalty doesn't drop when the room changes. It stays connected, whether you're standing right there or 1,000 miles away. Now, here's the lie you've been sold. That words are enough. That affection equals love. That gratitude today means devotion tomorrow. Wrong. Words are forecasts. Patterns are the weather records. And if her record doesn't match her forecast, believe the record. Don't let chemistry fool you into ignoring character. Chemistry tells you how good the time is. Character tells you how safe the future is. I know some of you might be thinking, but isn't this cold? Isn't love about trust? Yes, my friends, but trust is not blind. Trust is earned by evidence. Stoics knew this well. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." And in love, if you want to protect your peace, be content to look cautious instead of naive. Better to guard your heart than hand it over to someone who only knows how to act, not how to stay. So here's what I promise you today. By the end of this video, you'll see the two silent tests that cut through all the noise. No games, no paranoia, just wisdom that will help you see past the performance and into the truth. Because, folks, when you understand these tests, you won't have to guess anymore. You'll know. And here's where I leave you for now, with a short affirmation. Write this in the comments so it burns into your memory. Clarity is my shield. Say it again. Clarity is my shield. Because once you see the truth, you'll never go back to living in illusion. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and stay with me. Because what's coming next will change how you see love forever. Number 1, they. Why words are the cheapest currency. People don't get destroyed by lies. They get destroyed by the lies they wanted to believe. That line is hard, but it's the truth. My friends, most of the time it's not the obvious betrayal that wrecks someone, it's the slow seduction of words. Words are the cheapest currency in human relationships, and yet they're the most expensive when you cash them in too late. Think about it. They say, "I've got you. I'll never leave. I respect you. You're the only one." And in the moment, those words feel like gold, like a treasure you can hold. But later, when the weight of reality falls, you discover those words were just paper promises, printed in ink that washes off in the rain. Imagine this with me, folks. You're at a carnival and someone hands you a stack of tokens. They look shiny, they feel real. You think you can buy anything with them. But when you go to cash them in at the prize counter, the guy behind the glass says, "Sorry, these are just for show. They're not valid here." That's what words are like when they don't match behavior. They're tokens that feel valuable in your hand, but leave you empty when it's time to claim the prize. Now, I know what you're thinking, but if they said it, doesn't that mean they believe it? No, my friends, words can be rehearsed, words can be borrowed, words can be polished to perfection. As Seneca said, most men talk of peace, while all along war is in their hearts. They can speak of love, while loyalty is nowhere to be found. They can make promises while privately planning their exit. That's why you can't let words be your compass. A compass that spins wherever the wind blows won't lead you anywhere but lost. Here's the lie society sells, that if they say the right things, it means they are the right thing. And it's comfortable to believe that, isn't it? Because believing words is easy. It feels good to hear someone tell you that you're enough, that they value you, that they see forever with you. It's like wrapping yourself in a warm blanket on a cold night. The problem is, if that blanket is full of holes, it won't keep you warm when the storm comes. Words don't hold up in the rain. Patterns do. Let's get real for a second. How many of you have stayed in situations way longer than you should have because you remembered what they said instead of noticing what they did? How many times have you thought, "But they told me I was the one. They promised they wouldn't hurt me. They said they couldn't live without me," and yet their actions screamed the opposite? That's the trap. Your memory clings to the highlight reel of words, while your reality is drowning in the bloopers of their behavior. And here's why it's difficult, because words are fast, but patterns are slow. Words hit you in seconds, but patterns take weeks, months, sometimes years to emerge. We live in a world that rewards speed, quick fixes, instant gratification. So you want to believe the fast hit of a sweet word instead of waiting for the slow proof of consistency. But consistency, my friends, is the only truth you can bank on. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone can show me that what I think or do is not right, I will gladly change, for I seek the truth." That's what you must seek, not the rush of comfort, but the steady clarity of truth. Picture this. You're walking into a used car lot. The salesman greets you with a wide smile, polished shoes, and a speech so smooth it feels like butter. He tells you the car is perfect, barely driven, no issues at all. You want to believe him? But if you drive that car without checking the engine, without looking at the history, you'll find yourself stranded on the side of the road with smoke pouring out of the hood. Words are the salesman's pitch. Patterns are the car's history. Which one would you rather trust? The truth is, folks, we believe words because they feed our hopes. We want to believe in loyalty. We want to believe in respect. We want to believe someone values us as deeply as we value them. But wanting it doesn't make it real. Hope without evidence is just a drug. It numbs you until the crash comes. That's why I say again, words are the cheapest currency. Anyone can spend them. But actions, repeated over time, those are the deposits that never lie. And maybe you're afraid right now, afraid to admit that the words you're clinging to might not match the reality you're living in, afraid that if you strip away the promises, there won't be much left. That's a scary thought, I know. But fear has never protected anyone from the truth. Fear just delays the inevitable. Better to face the truth today than live in illusion for years. Now let me break one more lie. You've been told that questioning words means you don't trust. That if you ask for proof, you're insecure. That's not insecurity. That's discernment. Insecurity is demanding constant reassurance. Discernment is observing patterns quietly, without panic, without begging. It's not about playing detective, it's about being a witness to the truth, and the truth is always revealed in time. So here's what I want you to write in the comments right now, as an affirmation, as a declaration to yourself and the world around you. I believe patterns, not promises. Say it again. I believe patterns, not promises. That's your shield. That's your clarity. And the more you live by it, the less likely you are to be fooled by cheap currency again. Because here's the reality, folks. The person who values you doesn't just say it once. They show it over and over until it becomes undeniable. The one who truly respects you doesn't hide it in the dark. They live it when no one's watching. And the one worth building with doesn't just promise the future, they create it through consistent action. Stay with me, because next we're going to peel back another layer of this illusion. If words are the cheapest currency, then performances are the biggest con. And until you see through the performance, you'll never get to the truth of their character. That's where we're headed next. So buckle in. Clarity is coming. Number 2. The psychology of performance. Not everyone who smiles at you is your friend, and not everyone who frowns at you is your enemy. My friends, that line hits deep because it forces us to ask a question most people avoid. How much of what you see in others is real, and how much is just performance? See, here's the uncomfortable truth. Humans are actors. All of us. We've been practicing since childhood. We know how to polish our words, tighten our behavior, and wear just enough of a mask to get approval. And this is where most men get trapped. They mistake the outfit for the essence, the performance for the principle. They think loyalty on display is loyalty at heart, when often it's just the show they're meant to see. Imagine walking through a theme park. Everything looks magical. The castles shine, the characters wave, the music swells. But behind those castle walls, steel beams, concrete, and workers taking a smoke break. That's impression management. On the outside, it's Cinderella's palace. On the inside, it's scaffolding. People are no different. They build a stage for you, polish their lines, and deliver a perfect show. The problem is, you start building your future on the castle you saw, not the scaffolding that exists. And sooner or later, the scaffolding shows. Why do they do this? Because performance is easy. It costs nothing to smile at dinner. It takes no sacrifice to send a sweet text. Public affection is cheap because it's rewarded with likes, compliments, and validation. But private consistency? That's expensive. That requires character. And character is rare. As Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." Few people live by that. Most just do what looks good in the moment. Now, let's get into your mind for a second. Why is it so hard to see through performance? Because you want it to be real. You want the story to be true. You want the smiles, the affection, the late-night conversations to mean something. And that desire blinds you. You overlook inconsistencies. You excuse small cracks. You tell yourself they're just tired, they're just stressed. They didn't mean it that way, but deep down, you feel it. The mask is slipping. The castle is cardboard. Think of it like this. You're watching a movie, and the actors are crying on screen. Tears streaming, voices breaking. It feels so real you almost cry with them. But the moment the director yells, "Cut," they wipe their eyes and laugh with the crew. That's performance. And in relationships, performance can look like loyalty. It can look like respect. It can look like devotion. But when the director, the audience, the eyes, the social context steps away, the act ends. And here's where men get hurt. They confuse the energy of performance for the energy of principle. Performance feels exciting. It's colorful, dramatic, intense. It makes you feel like you're finally the hero of someone's story. But principle is quieter. Principle is steady, repetitive, almost boring. It's the text that arrives every day, not just when it's convenient. It's the boundary that holds firm whether you're in the room or not. And because it lacks drama, you might overlook it. But let me tell you, drama fades. Principles don't. Let's break another lie. If they show me love in public, it must mean they're loyal in private. No, my friends, public affection can be branding, it's advertising, it's the Instagram post, the caption, the performance for the crowd. But private loyalty is what counts. Do they still act aligned when the cameras are off? Do they still live by respect when there's no applause? Or do they crack the door open for validation the moment no one's watching? That's the real test. Here's the psychology behind it. Impression management is wired into us. Psychologists describe it as the way we try to control how others perceive us. It's not inherently evil. We all do it. Job interviews, first dates, family dinners. But here's the danger. When impression management becomes identity, when the act becomes so polished that you can't see the real person anymore, and you, desperate for love, start believing the act instead of waiting to witness the patterns. Think about a sports team. On game day, the players wear crisp uniforms, run their drills, and put on a show. But if you want to know their true discipline, you don't watch the game. You watch practice. You watch what they do when there are no fans in the stands. Do they still show up early? Do they still push through exhaustion? Do they still play with the same intensity? That's character. The game is performance. And if you're judging someone only by the game, you'll never know if they're disciplined enough to win the championship of life with you. Now, let's address the fear that creeps in right about here. You might be thinking, but if everyone performs, how can I ever trust anyone? That's the wrong question. The real question is, Who are they when the performance isn't required? You don't need to interrogate, accuse, or stalk. You just need to observe. Watch them in the quiet moments. Watch them in the spaces with no scoreboard, no likes, no immediate reward. That's where the truth lives. And here's another tough pill. Sometimes they're not even being malicious. Sometimes the performance isn't a calculated lie. It's just human nature. People want to be liked. They want to be seen in the best light. So they shine when the eyes are on them. But the problem is when you, my friend, confuse that shine with substance. A diamond shines under any light. Glass only shines when the spotlight hits it. That's the distinction. Let me give you a story. David thought he had found someone solid. Around friends, they laughed at his jokes, praised his work ethic, and made him feel like a king. But when the doors closed, their tone changed. Suddenly he was background noise, not the center. Publicly, they were polished. Privately, they were careless. And it broke him, not because they betrayed him with some dramatic act, but because he realized the loyalty was only for the stage. Off stage, the script was gone. So what's the motivation here? Don't be afraid of performance. Be aware of it. Don't get addicted to the thrill of the act. Wait for the boring truth of patterns. Because the person who is truly aligned won't need an audience to behave. They'll honor their code in silence. And when you find that, my friends, it won't feel dramatic, but it will feel safe. And safety is underrated. Safety is peace. Peace is freedom. I'll leave you with this affirmation. Write it in the comments so it sticks in your mind. I see through the act. Say it again. I see through the act. You owe it to yourself to stop paying for performances with your future. Because here's the reality. When you learn to separate performance from principle, you'll never mistake attention for love again. And stay with me, because next we're going to dive into the first silent test. The one most men never think about, but it's the stage where loyalty either shows itself as gold or exposes itself as glass. How they handle freedom when no one is watching, that's coming up next. Number 3. Silent test. Number 1. How they handle freedom. Freedom doesn't change people, it reveals them. Let that sit for a moment, my friends, because if you remember nothing else from this message, remember that line. Freedom is the ultimate mirror. It doesn't create betrayal, it simply gives betrayal room to walk out. It doesn't create loyalty, it gives loyalty space to prove itself. And yet, most men never test for it. They're too busy enjoying the performance, too busy soaking in the affection when the lights are on, that they forget the truth always hides in the shadows. Now picture this with me. Imagine you leave your house unlocked for a day. Nothing happens. You breathe a sigh of relief, maybe even think, see, the world isn't so bad after all. But what if a stranger had walked by, noticed the door wide open, and decided not to enter? Not because they respected your space, but because they simply didn't need anything inside at that moment. You'd still think you were safe, but the truth would be untested. Real safety is not when the door is unlocked and untouched. Real safety is when someone has the chance to walk in and they refuse because integrity bars them, not circumstance. That's what freedom does. It gives them the unlocked door. What they do with it tells you everything. The mistake men make is treating freedom like a gift they're scared to hand over. They think, if I give them space, if I don't monitor, if I don't check in, maybe they'll forget about me. That fear is understandable, but it's misplaced. Because a loyal person doesn't see freedom as permission to wander. They see freedom as proof of their own code. But if you never allow that space, you'll never know if their loyalty is real or just performance. Here's the lie you've been told. If they're loyal when they're with me, it means they're loyal all the time. Wrong. Loyalty in the spotlight is cheap. It's easy to behave when someone's watching, when the relationship is public, when accountability is obvious. The true test is private loyalty, the kind that costs something when no one is there to applaud it. Anyone can look committed when the room is full. The question is, what do they do when the room is empty? And let's be real for a second. This is scary because freedom feels risky. It feels like giving them a hall pass, an open bar, a blank check to do whatever they want. And in a way, it is. But that's the point. You don't want loyalty that only exists inside the walls of a cage. You want loyalty that walks freely and still chooses you. As Marcus Aurelius said, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Integrity doesn't need supervision. It lives by principle, not by watchful eyes. Now let's ground this in a metaphor. Think of loyalty like gravity. You don't see it, you don't hear it, but it's always there, holding everything in place. You don't have to check every second if gravity is still working, it just is. But imagine if gravity only worked when you were staring at the ground, and the moment you looked away, things started floating off. That's not gravity, that's an illusion. Loyalty is the same. If it only works when you're present, it's not loyalty, it's branding. I'll give you a story, folks. David was a man in his 40s, finally dating again after a messy divorce. He met someone through friends, someone who looked perfect on paper, affectionate, funny, always bragging about him in public. At dinners, she'd beam at him, hold his arm, tell the world how lucky she was. But when she traveled with friends, when she had her nights out, things changed. Her phone went dark. Her tone grew vague. They offered stories, but they were blurry, missing details. David brushed it off at first. Everyone deserves privacy, right? But then one evening, he noticed a message flash across her screen from another man. Nothing explicit, just a friendly line, but hidden. And in that moment, clarity hit. Her loyalty glowed in public, but flickered in the dark. Did she cheat? No. But that's not the point. Loyalty isn't just about avoiding betrayal. It's about refusing to even crack the door open. It's about treating the bond as sacred, even when it's easy to bend the rules. David realized he was watching loyalty as an outfit, not as a code. Outfits look sharp in the light, but they always come off. A code doesn't. A code is stitched into character. This is why freedom is such a sharp test. When you're not there, when they don't need you, when the door is wide open, that's when the truth shows. If they seek validation, flirt with attention, or play with the boundaries, it means the bond was only real when it was convenient. But if they hold the same respect in silence, you've found something rare. And I know what you might be thinking, but isn't it paranoid to check for this? Isn't that insecurity? No, suspicion is fear. Discernment is wisdom. You don't have to spy, stalk, or interrogate. You simply have to observe. Do their patterns shift when no one is watching? Do they speak about you with the same respect, whether you're in the room or not? Do they maintain boundaries when opportunity presents itself? Or do they bend because they think you'll never find out? Here's the harsh truth, folks. Freedom doesn't create betrayal, it just exposes it. If betrayal lives in their character, freedom is the stage where it performs. If integrity lives in their character, freedom is the stage where it shines. Don't complicate it. Don't excuse it. Don't rationalize it. Just observe. The beauty of this test is that it saves you years, because if their respect is only conditional, it will surface when you're not there. You don't have to set traps. Life provides them naturally. Work trips, nights out, solo time. These are not threats. They're opportunities for truth. And let me give you the good news. The kind of person worth building with doesn't see freedom as chains removed. They see freedom as alignment with who they already are. Their code doesn't change just because no one is watching. Their values don't vanish just because they're unsupervised. Whether you're in the room or 1,000 miles away, their consistency becomes your peace. That's what real safety feels like. Not constant reassurance, but the absence of doubt. So, my friends, here's your affirmation. Write it in the comments, show it to yourself, and show it to the world around you. Freedom reveals the truth. That's the shield. That's the wisdom. Don't fear it. Embrace it. Because if they protect what's sacred when no one's watching, you've found something gold. And if they don't, you've been given a warning before the cost becomes unbearable. And stay close, because next we'll dive into the second silent test. This one cuts even deeper. It's not about what they do when you're not around. It's about what they do when they no longer need you. That's when the mask either stays on or finally falls. That's the sharpest mirror of character. And we'll break it down next. Number 4. They. Silent test. Number 2. How they treat you when they no longer need you. The sharpest mirror of character is not how they act when they need you, but how they treat you when they don't. My friends, let that strike your heart for a moment, because here's the reality. Most people can play kind when they need something from you. Most can shower you with affection, gratitude, and patience as long as you're filling a role in their life. But the moment the need dries up, the performance often collapses. This is the second silent test, and it's the one that blindsides men the hardest. Not because it comes with dramatic betrayal, but because it comes with quiet neglect. One day, you're essential. The next, you're background noise, and that shift tells you everything you need to know. Let me paint this with a metaphor. Imagine you're holding an umbrella in a rainstorm, and someone huddles close to you. They thank you, they smile, they cling tight because you're protecting them from the storm. But what happens when the rain stops? Do they still walk beside you because they value you? Or do they step away without a second thought because the only thing they ever valued was the umbrella? That's the truth of this test. Were you loved for your essence or for your utility? Here's the lie many men swallow. They appreciate me, so they must love me. Wrong. Appreciation can be conditional. It can be tied to convenience, to benefit, to the season of life you're in together. Gratitude today doesn't guarantee devotion tomorrow. Some people's warmth is just a reflection of what you're giving them. Take away the gift, and their gratitude disappears like smoke in the wind. I'll give you an example. Michael, a man in his 50s, thought he had finally found peace after years of loneliness. The person he dated leaned on him, emotionally, financially, socially. They called him every night to decompress, sought his advice on her problems, and leaned into his stability. Michael felt valued, maybe even needed. But here's what happened. They landed a new job. Her social circle grew. They became financially stable, and slowly her tone shifted. Calls grew shorter, patience thinned. When Michael asked for time or support, she sighed, acted inconvenienced, or brushed him off. Nothing explosive, no betrayal, just a quiet coldness. And that's when the truth hit him. They never loved him for who he was. She loved him for the role he played. Once the role was obsolete, so was he. That's the heartbreak men rarely talk about. Not being rejected outright, but being demoted from everything to extra. And here's the dangerous part. You'll want to rationalize it. You'll tell yourself, maybe they're just busy. Maybe it's stress. Maybe I'm overthinking, because facing the truth feels heavier than believing the excuse. But denial doesn't change patterns, and this test always reveals patterns. So why does this test hit so hard? Because it touches your deepest fear, that you're only valuable as long as you're useful, that you're only respected as long as you're needed. And when that fear proves true, it feels like your whole identity collapses. But here's the shift I want you to see. If someone only treated you well because you were useful, that wasn't love in the first place. That was a transaction, and transactions expire. Love doesn't. Think of it like building a house. If someone lives with you because you're sheltering them, they'll stay through the storm. But when the sun shines again, do they still sit on the porch with you? Do they still laugh, still share, still stay close, even when they no longer depend on your roof? If they vanish when the weather clears, they were never there for you. They were there for the shelter. And a man who confuses shelter for love will always feel abandoned when the sun rises. Here's a quote worth burning into memory. Gratitude fades. Character doesn't. If their kindness was gratitude for what you gave them, it will fade the moment they no longer need it. But if their kindness comes from character, it will remain, with or without benefits. And that distinction saves you years. Now, let's address the fear. You might be thinking, but doesn't everyone appreciate people who help them? Yes, of course. Appreciation is human. But the difference is this. Does their respect stay when the help is gone? Do they still honor you when they no longer lean on you? Because the respect rooted in values doesn't evaporate with circumstances. It holds steady. It treats your presence as a choice, not a burden. And let's have a little fun with another metaphor. Think of yourself as a ladder. While someone is climbing, they hold tight. They depend on every rung. They thank the ladder for supporting them. But once they reach the roof, some people kick the ladder aside because they don't need it anymore. Others leave the ladder in place because they understand its value, even if they no longer depend on it. Which response do you think reveals true character? This is why the second silent test is unavoidable. Life will create the moment for you. People's circumstances change. They get promotions. They heal emotionally. They gain independence. And when that happens, the role you once played may no longer be necessary. Don't fight it. Don't fear it. Just observe. Their reaction will tell you if the bond was real or conditional. Here's the good news. Some will pass this test beautifully. They won't treat you as disposable just because their need has faded. They'll still honor you, still respect you, still choose you. That's love born of value, not convenience. That's the kind of bond worth holding on to, because you'll never feel like you're auditioning to stay in their life. You'll simply feel safe, chosen, valued for who you are. And that's rare, my friends. So what's the wisdom here? Stop confusing temporary gratitude with permanent character. Stop mistaking need for love. Stop begging for warmth that was only tied to what you could provide. Instead, see clearly. The way they treat you when they no longer need you is the sharpest mirror of their soul. Look into it and believe what you see. And here's where I'll leave you with an affirmation. Write it in the comments so it becomes part of your code. I am valued for who I am, not for what I provide. Say it again. I am valued for who I am, not for what I provide. My friends, that line is your shield against illusions. because once you embrace it, you'll never again beg for respect that only existed when you were necessary. Stay with me, because in the next section, we're going to tie this together, the difference between love and convenience. It's the line most men never see until it's too late, but once you learn it, you'll never mistake being useful for being loved again. And that clarity, my friends, will save your peace. Number 5. Love versus convenience. Real love stays when the benefits change. Convenience leaves the moment the role is fulfilled. My friends, that's the truth most people don't want to face, because it's comfortable to believe that affection equals love, that gratitude equals devotion, and that being needed equals being valued. But if you peel back the layers, what you'll often find is not love at all. It's convenience. And if you confuse the two, you set yourself up for the deepest pain a person can feel. Let me ask you something. Have you ever fixed someone's problems, carried their burdens, supported them through the storm, only to realize that once the clouds cleared, your importance evaporated? That's the cruel reality of convenience. While they needed you, you were their hero. But once they didn't, you were just another face in the crowd. It feels like betrayal, but really, it was just exposure. The storm didn't create love. The storm created dependence, and dependence is not devotion. Here's the lie you've been told. If they lean on me, it must mean they love me. No, leaning on you may only mean you're filling a gap, and gaps are temporary. Real love doesn't vanish when the gap closes. Real love doesn't need you to be their rescuer, provider, or therapist in order to treat you with respect. Real love values your presence, not your utility. Let's use a metaphor here. Imagine a candle in a dark room. While the room is dark, everyone gathers around the flame. They praise it, they warm themselves, they treat it like it's sacred. But the moment the lights flick back on, the candle is ignored. It's the same flame. It hasn't changed, but their relationship to it has. Why? Because they never valued the flame. They only valued the light when they were in darkness. That's convenience. Love, on the other hand, still appreciates the flame even when the room is bright. And this is where most men get hurt. They don't realize they're being loved for convenience until it's too late. At first, it feels good to be needed. It strokes your ego. It gives you purpose. It feels like proof of love. But slowly, when the needs fade, you start to feel the shift. Conversations get shorter, respect grows thinner, patience runs dry. Suddenly, the same person who once leaned on you now treats you like you're in the way. And you're left asking yourself, what changed? The answer is simple. The need ended, and with it, the performance of love. But don't confuse this with bitterness. This isn't about hating those who treat you this way. It's about clarity. Because clarity protects your peace. Once you understand that convenience and love are not the same thing, you'll stop bargaining with illusions. You'll stop trying to reignite gratitude that was only tied to what you could give. You'll stop confusing dependence for devotion. Think of it like this. A taxi driver might smile, open the door, and even engage in friendly conversation with you. But that's not love. It's transaction. The moment the ride ends, so does the warmth. It doesn't make the driver cruel. It just makes the interaction conditional. Many relationships operate the same way. They look like love on the surface, but underneath, they're driven by transaction. And when the meter stops running, so does the connection. Now, let me hit you with a quote worth carrying with you. Benefits can buy affection, but only values sustain respect. Benefits are temporary. They can vanish with a job loss, a shift in circumstances, or the closing of a gap. But values, they're permanent. If someone values loyalty, they'll honor you whether you're their provider or just their partner. If someone values respect, they'll treat you with kindness whether you're essential to their survival or not. That's the difference. And here's why this is difficult. Because society tells you that being needed is proof of love. You see it in movies, you hear it in songs, you're trained to equate desperation with devotion. But Stoicism reminds us, love is not possession. Love is not dependency. Love is freedom and choice. It's choosing to honor someone even when you don't have to. That's where the gold is. Let me give you another metaphor. Imagine you're carrying someone across a river. They hold on to you tightly, thanking you for every step. But once you reach the shore, they let go and walk ahead without a second glance. Were they grateful? Yes. Did they love you? No. They loved the crossing, not the carrier. And if you mistake their gratitude for the journey as love for you, you'll spend your life ferrying people who will leave you once they no longer need the ride. So how do you spot love versus convenience before it's too late? Simple. Watch how they act when the benefits fade. If you stop rescuing, do they still respect you? If you're no longer solving their problems, do they still value your presence? If you're not providing, fixing, or saving, do they still treat you like a priority? That's the test. And life will always give you chances to see it. Here's the beauty of clarity. When you stop confusing convenience with love, you stop begging for what was never real. You stop trying to resuscitate a bond that was never built on values. You stop handing over years of your life to someone who only loved the role you played. And that, my friends, is freedom. And let's not forget, some people will pass this test. Some will still choose you when they don't need you. Some will honor you even in independence. Some will treat you not as a tool, but as a treasure. That's rare. That's gold. And when you find it, don't take it for granted, because most people never do. So here's the affirmation I want you to write in the comments right now. I will not mistake convenience for love. Write it, own it, declare it, because once you live by it, you'll never again pay for temporary affection with permanent years. And stay with me, because next we're going to break down something even more subtle, how suspicion and discernment aren't the same thing. It's the difference between living paranoid and living wise. And once you see that distinction, you'll carry peace instead of fear. That's what's coming next. Number 6. They. Suspicion versus discernment. Fear invents ghosts, but wisdom simply turns on the light. My friends, that's the heart of this next test of character. Not theirs, but yours. Because it doesn't matter how sharp your eyes are, if you're looking through the lens of fear, you'll always distort the truth. Too many men confuse suspicion with discernment, and it's costing them both peace and clarity. Suspicion is paranoia. It hunts for proof of betrayal in every silence, every pause, every delayed text. Discernment is wisdom. It gathers evidence over time, calmly, without panic, without chasing shadows. And until you learn the difference, you'll either destroy something good or stay blind to something rotten. Let me start with a metaphor. Imagine standing in a dark room. You hear a creak in the corner. Suspicion grabs a stick and starts swinging at the air, convinced the noise means danger. Discernment, on the other hand, simply flips on the light. And the truth is revealed. Sometimes it's just the wind, sometimes it's a thief, but either way, you see clearly without exhausting yourself in panic. Suspicion fights shadows. Discernment reveals reality. But here's the problem. Suspicion feels safer. It makes you feel like you're in control because you're always on guard, always checking, always searching. Yet it's a trap. It drains your energy, poisons your relationships, and turns you into the very thing you fear, a prisoner of distrust. Stoicism teaches us that peace is power. Epictetus said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Suspicion is imagination turned against you. It invents betrayals that haven't happened yet, and in the process, it robs you of your calm. Now let's talk about why this is so difficult, because deep down, most men who've been betrayed before carry scars. They've seen the mask slip once, and now they're terrified it will happen again. So every little detail becomes evidence in their mind. A phone face down on the table, a slight change in tone, a friend's name mentioned one too many times, and suddenly the mind spirals. What if they're hiding something? What if I'm being played again? Suspicion thrives on fear. Discernment thrives on patience. One reacts instantly, the other waits for patterns. Think of it like weather. Suspicion is looking at the sky, seeing a cloud, and screaming, "The storm is coming." Discernment is keeping a weather journal, tracking the clouds over weeks, and then calmly concluding whether you live in a rainy climate or not. Suspicion overvalues moments. Discernment values patterns. And as I've said before, my friends, patterns never lie. Here's where most men go wrong. They think suspicion is protecting them. They think constantly checking, questioning, and doubting will keep betrayal away. But suspicion doesn't stop betrayal. It just makes you live through it twice. First, in your imagination, then in reality. Discernment, on the other hand, doesn't live in fear. It doesn't panic. It observes. It takes note. And when the pattern is undeniable, it makes the decision with clarity instead of chaos. Let me give you a story. Tom had been cheated on in his 20s, and it left him broken. So when he entered a new relationship years later, he carried suspicion like a shield. Every time his partner was late, every time she laughed at a message, every time she said she was tired, Tom interrogated her. "Who were you with? Why didn't you answer? What's so funny?" His suspicion wasn't protecting him, it was poisoning the bond. Eventually she left, not because she betrayed him, but because suspicion had turned him into someone she couldn't breathe around. Tom's mistake wasn't his caution. It was that he confused suspicion for discernment. Suspicion made him paranoid. Discernment would have made him wise. Now let's balance this, because some of you might be thinking, so should I just trust blindly? Absolutely not. Blind trust is naivety. Stoic wisdom doesn't tell you to close your eyes. It tells you to open them wider. The difference is in how you open them. Suspicion sees a lie in every silence. Discernment waits to see if the silence is a one-time cloud or a repeating storm. Suspicion panics at moments. Discernment studies patterns. Here's another metaphor for you. Suspicion is like shaking a wrapped gift because you can't wait to know what's inside. You rattle it, tear it, spoil the surprise. Discernment is like waiting until the time comes, unwrapping it carefully, and letting reality show you what's there. One is frantic and fearful. The other is calm and clear. And I get it. Waiting is hard. When your heart is on the line, patience feels like weakness. You want certainty now. You want proof today. But Stoicism reminds us, rushing truth doesn't change truth. All it does is rob you of peace while you wait. A wise man once said, "Time is the wisest counselor of all." And that's what discernment is, letting time counsel you instead of letting fear control you. So how do you practice discernment? First, separate facts from feelings. A delayed text is a fact. They must be hiding something is a feeling. Don't confuse the two. Second, track patterns, not moments. One cloudy day doesn't mean you live in a rainy city, but if every day is cloudy for months, you know the climate. Third, trust consistency over charisma. Charisma can charm you in the moment, but consistency is what carries you through seasons. And here's where the motivation comes in. Imagine living without suspicion weighing on your shoulders. Imagine observing calmly, knowing that the truth will always reveal itself in time. Imagine freeing yourself from the constant paranoia and instead carrying the quiet confidence of a man who sees clearly. That's what discernment gives you. Not fear, but freedom. Not paranoia, but peace. I'll give you another quote to anchor this. Truth is confirmed by inspection and delay, falsehood by haste and uncertainty. Suspicion is hasty and uncertain. Discernment inspects and waits. And if you let that guide you, you'll never again waste years chasing ghosts. So here's the affirmation I want you to declare today. Write it in the comments, let it echo in your heart, and show it to the world around you. I choose discernment over suspicion. Say it again with me. I choose discernment over suspicion. That's your shield. That's your freedom. Stay with me, because next we're going to tie all of this together. Once you see how freedom reveals truth and how independence exposes motives, and once you learn the difference between suspicion and discernment, you'll realize something powerful, that clarity itself is the victory. And in the final section, we'll talk about why clarity is not cold, but merciful, why it saves you years, and why it might be the greatest gift you ever give yourself. That's coming next. Number 7. Clarity as victory. Clarity is not cold. It is mercy. My friends, let that line settle into your bones, because in a world where lies are dressed as loyalty and performances are mistaken for principle, the most powerful gift you can give yourself is clarity. Not illusions, not sweet words, not temporary highs, but clear vision of what is, not what you wish it to be. Most men don't get destroyed by betrayal. They get destroyed by illusions they refuse to let go of. And that's why clarity is victory. It saves you years, it protects your peace, and it frees you from paying for staged loyalty with your precious time. Think of it like driving through a foggy road. When the fog is thick, you slow down, you panic, you strain your eyes trying to see what's ahead. Every shadow looks like danger, but the moment the fog lifts, even if the road is rocky, you can finally move forward with confidence. That's what clarity does. It lifts the fog. It shows you whether you're on solid ground or heading toward a cliff. And once you see, you can act. That's not cold. That's freedom. Here's the lie most people live by. It's better not to know. Ignorance is bliss. No, my friends, ignorance is a slow poison. It numbs you for a while, but it destroys you in the end. Clarity might sting in the moment, but it heals. It reveals. It releases you from confusion. And when you look back, you realize it wasn't the pain of truth that broke you. It was the weight of denial. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine carrying a backpack full of bricks. You don't realize it because the weight has built slowly over time. You just know you're tired, drained, and struggling. Then, one day, someone opens the bag and shows you what you've been carrying. That moment might shock you, it might even hurt to admit, but once you see it, you can finally put the bag down. That's clarity. Painful in the moment, but merciful for a lifetime. And here's where men often resist. They tell themselves, If I see the truth, I'll lose them. If I acknowledge the pattern, I'll have to act. And so they delay clarity. They cover their eyes with words, excuses, and memories of better times. But let me remind you, delaying clarity never preserves love. It only extends the illusion. As Marcus Aurelius said, "If someone can show me my error, I will gladly change my ways, for I seek the truth." That's not cold. That's strength. A man who seeks truth may bleed for a moment, but he heals for a lifetime. A man who avoids truth bleeds slowly for years. Now let's talk about why clarity feels so difficult, because clarity forces choice. Once you see that loyalty was only an outfit, that love was only convenience, that words were only tokens, you can no longer hide. You either confront reality or betray yourself. And that's why so many men cling to suspicion instead of discernment, to words instead of patterns, to illusions instead of truth. Suspicion lets you live in doubt. Clarity forces you to decide. But my friends, indecision is a prison. Decision is freedom. Let me share a story. Anthony stayed in a relationship for years, convinced that the coldness he felt was just a phase. Whenever he noticed distance, he remembered the sweet words from the past. Whenever he sensed neglect, he told himself she was stressed. He carried illusions like armor, but the armor was paper. Eventually, the truth hit. She had outgrown the need for him, and the respect faded with it. Anthony lost not just the relationship, but years of his life to denial. His pain wasn't from the breakup, it was from the time wasted pretending not to see. And that's why I tell you, clarity is victory. Even if it costs you something today, it saves you far more tomorrow. Here's another metaphor to drive this home. Think of a doctor who finds a tumor early. At first, the news hurts. It feels like the end, but catching it early saves your life. Now compare that to the man who avoids the doctor because he doesn't want bad news. The illness grows, spreads, and eventually takes him down. That's the difference between clarity and denial. One cuts today to save tomorrow. The other delays today and loses everything tomorrow. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but isn't clarity lonely? Isn't it harsh? No, my friends, clarity isn't loneliness, it's alignment. Clarity doesn't leave you empty, it makes space for what's real. When you strip away illusion, you don't end up with nothing, you end up with truth. And the truth may sting, but it also liberates. It frees you to build with someone who lives by values, not by convenience. It frees you to stop auditioning for approval and start walking in peace. Here's the motivation. Clarity is how you win in silence. You don't have to argue. You don't have to beg. You don't have to play detective. You simply see. And once you see, you adjust. That adjustment might mean walking away. It might mean lowering your investment. It might mean demanding consistency. Whatever it means, the power shifts back to you. And that's why clarity is victory. Not because it's easy, but because it puts your future back in your own hands. So let me give you an affirmation that I want you to declare, type in the comments, and carry with you. Clarity is my shield. Peace is my prize. Say it again, my friends. Clarity is my shield. Peace is my prize. Because when you live by that, you no longer fear the truth. You embrace it. You no longer beg for illusions. You demand reality. And in doing so, you protect the most valuable thing you own. Your time, your energy, your future. Now, before we close, here's my call to action for you. If this spoke to you, if it opened your eyes, if it reminded you of something you've lived or saved you from something you might step into, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button, press subscribe and share this with a friend who needs it. Drop your affirmation in the comments. Let the world see your standard. Because when men commit to clarity together, illusions lose their power. Stay with me, because this journey doesn't end here. The silent tests, the distinction between suspicion and discernment, the difference between love and convenience, these are not just lessons, they're weapons. And when you carry them, you'll never again mistake performance for principle. You'll never again beg for love that was only tied to your utility. And you'll never again trade your peace for illusions. Clarity is victory. Clarity is mercy. And clarity, my friends, is freedom.